rosscaminsky.com.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
Now, Ross Kaminsky.
Come on, man.
On Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
Did you ever have a tube of chapstick where some of the chapstick stuff got stuck in the cap when you opened up the tube of chapstick, and then you're missing some in the bottom and it's all misshapen and it's just not right? That's what I'm working on right now. If you're watching me on YouTube right now, as apparently we're supposed to be celebrating National Sponge Cake Day, I've got my little Swiss Army knife here. I feel like I'm like Bob Vila or one of these shows, like how you do stuff, how you fix stuff at home. I got my little Swiss Army knife here, and I'm scraping all the chapstick out of the cap of this chapstick thing, and then putting it in the base, and then like smoothing over the top once it's in there. Yes, Producer Shannon.
You're an odd combination of MacGyver and a Kardashian.
That's the best. I'm pretty sure that's a compliment, I think. at least the MacGyver part. Okay. Anyway, now I've at least temporarily repaired my my chapstick. I don't go anywhere without it. I don't know why. That's what you go somewhere in the morning, you grab your car key and your wallet. I always grab my chapstick too. I don't know why that is. National Sponge Cake Day, I'm told. Sponge cake is not really my thing because it doesn't have enough chocolate, but some people dig it. So if you're a sponge cake person, this might be a good day to go feed that particular addiction of yours or whatever it might be. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I had one of the laziest weekends in a long time. I helped Kristen in the garden a little bit because that's what she does almost every day. And I had to drive one of my kids up to Nederland to visit a friend, still a friend from when we lived up in Nederland. It's like an hour and a quarter each way, actually, which is kind of crazy because that was the drive that I used to do when I got this job before we moved down from there. And I have to say, I do miss it up there. We had 40 acres bordering national forest, and it was pretty spectacular, and I gave it up for this job, but it's worth it. It's worth it. We got a lot to talk about. I'm not gonna start off on Afghanistan. I think we've all heard and thought a lot about that already over the last few days. I'll get to it at some point, but I want to talk about some COVID stuff that I think you're going to find rather interesting. First of all, this is not as much interesting as sad, but a friend of mine who actually used to be the program director of 630 KHOW years ago. His name is Dan, and you may remember Dan Mandis because he also did weekends on KOA for a long time and was a pretty well-known radio guy here in Colorado and a good friend of mine. He ended up moving to Tennessee, where he became program director and morning show host on a very big station in Nashville called WTN. And it's like the major talk station in the area. It's an FM station, and I guess you might say it's sort of the Tennessee equivalent of KOA. So he's the program director there now, as well as being a host. And so when I saw this story, I thought of him and had some conversations with him over the weekend. One of his hosts, afternoon guy named Phil Valentine, has been someone who on the air has been, I want to be very careful about this. He has not been anti-vaccine, but he has been questioning / critical of the drift towards mandates and some of the stuff when the Biden administration suggested they might start sending people around from the federal government to try to get people vaccinated and stuff like that. And Phil Valentine did this takeoff of the Beatles song Tax Man, but he did a takeoff called Vax Man. And again, he wasn't anti-vaccine, but he was anti-overreaching government. But that's not how the left and the mainstream media is portraying him now. They're portraying him as just straight up anti-vax, even though he wasn't. Now that this weekend he died of coronavirus. And it's a sad thing. He was 61 years old, very, very popular host in the Nashville area. And he contracted coronavirus actually last month. And he talked about it. He talked about all the coughing and congestion and fatigue. And he said it, quote, hurts like crap. He advised listeners, I'm quoting now from The Guardian, a British website, he advised listeners to get vaccinated, but also said there were some, quote, very effective alternatives to immunization. Again, according to this article, I didn't listen, so I don't know what he said. But his family said Phil would like his listeners to know that while he has never been an anti-vaxxer, he regrets not being more vehemently pro-vaccine. And a statement from his family concluded, please go get vaccinated. Anyway, this hits home, obviously, a radio guy. And I was also glad to talk to my friend Dan, who's in a very tough spot now. I mean, he runs this station. So he's going to have to figure out somebody, try to find somebody to take that job. Dan will probably do it for a little while in the interim. So he'll be doing 2 radio shows a day, which I can tell you is not that much fun. But here's just a little inside baseball thing that's kind of interesting. Dan was saying, a lot of folks these days, they do podcasts and they do well enough. Like they feel like they've got the success that they need in podcasting. And even if they could have a little more financial success, let's say, by being on the air more, there's a lot of people who have no interest in doing 15 or 20 hours of talking on the air every week when they feel like they could just do less. And, of course, that's something that's going on in lots of areas of society right now, how hard it is to get workers. I had, who was I talking with? Oh, I know who I was talking with. A friend of mine owns a company that provides services for commercial property, right? For office buildings, shopping malls, and all kinds of services, landscaping and plowing and driveway or parking lot sweeping and all kind of painting, all sorts of things that he does for commercial properties. And he was telling me how difficult it is to get any workers right now. I'm like, well, that's everywhere. There's nobody wants to work. And then I went to India's restaurant. I mentioned to you that I was going to. Went to India's restaurant on Friday, got some takeout, and I was talking with Chris. And I said, how are things going? He said, it's going all right. He said, you can tell if you look here in the restaurant, we're a little bit short-staffed, right? They had a few people working, but not as many as you would normally see, probably, especially on a Friday night. And he said, nobody wants to work. He said, Ross, you would not believe how much money I have wasted on advertising to try to get employees. Nobody wants to work. Ads where in the past I would have gotten lots of applications. Now, crickets. I get absolutely nothing. And my friend with the commercial building services company said the same thing, just coincidentally. He said, oh, yeah, I've been advertising for employees and can't get a response. And it's really kind of, I don't know whether it's a tragedy or a travesty or both, that here in the United States of America, we've got this this kind of thing going on. Actually, that reminds me, I'm going to move away from the COVID for a second because this leads into something else I wanted to talk about anyway. This is from the Denver Post. It was posted last night. Here's a headline. Up to 116,000 Coloradans will see their unemployment benefits cut or eliminated in 2 weeks. Now, I know this is going to make me sound heartless, but my response is good. Good. There are just way, way too many people who have been refusing to work and also, by the way, refusing to pay rent because of these stupid government policies that create all the wrong incentives. Again, from the Denver Post, as of Friday, this past Friday, Colorado Department of Labor and Employment said the number of people affected in some way by the looming expirations numbered 116,000, with most of them, about 87,000, set to lose benefits entirely. The expirations affect claims after the week ending September 4th. The total comprises people who qualified to receive a $300 supplemental federal weekly benefit. What a freaking curse this thing was. I mean, look, I get it if the federal government's going to shut down the economy and they feel like they need to do something for a little while, right? But for this to have been extended throughout the recovery, and put aside Delta, they didn't know that was coming, and actually the economy's still doing okay. For them to have extended this, for the Democrats to have extended it, as the economy was coming out of COVID and provide this enormous incentive for people not to go back to work. I mean, all these things start tying together. At the risk of, going off on another tangent, I'll just mention I saw a story yesterday about how many supermarkets are low on stock. And a big reason they're low on stock is the shortage of workers, including not just people to put stock on shelves, but also truck drivers to bring stuff throughout the food supply chain. So to bring stuff to the supermarket, not enough truck drivers working right now. And at the companies that actually make food, they don't have enough workers either. And I suspect, and we will soon find out because this insane policy is going to end in a couple of weeks, I suspect that a big percentage, I suspect that the single largest factor in the shortage of workers is this insane $300 weekly sit on my ass bonus from the federal government. Thank you, Democrats. That supplement offered a significant boost to the $380 paid to claimants in average regular weekly benefits. So even those who retain their eligibility will feel the pinch. Good, it's a pinch they should feel. Get to work. Get to work. The 87,000 plus who face not just a reduction, but a benefits cliff are people who received benefits in mid-August under 2 expiring federal expansion programs. Can I just, let me finish this and I got something else here. The Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program, PEUC, extended eligibility for claimants by 13 weeks once they exhausted state unemployment benefits. The other, called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, PUA, established unemployment benefits for the first time for self-employed and gig workers. And remember, nobody had been paying into an unemployment pool for them, so that's just money redistributed to them from taxpayers. Though the state continues to see initial unemployment benefit claims filed each week, the rolls have declined overall as some workers have found jobs in recent weeks. That means it's possible, state labor officials say, that fewer than 116,000 will still be actively receiving benefits by the time the expiration date on the federal programs arrives. If I were one of these people who was taking the $300 a week of other people's money in order to sit on my ass, and I know that this plan is coming to an end, I would try to beat the rush. I mean, you don't want to be in the Who concert, of people with benefits ending on September 5th and all these people stampeding to try to get a job. For the record, if I were desperate and needed an employee or two, I guess I would hire the best of whoever comes along, although I would almost certainly refuse to hire anybody who worked for me before and stayed out of work just in order to collect $300 a week. And I don't want to sound totally heartless. I mean, I do understand that $300 a week thing was a massive incentive. And for somebody who's, making $25,000 a year and now they can make $40,000 a year, or whatever the number is, $50,000 a year by not working and do much better financially, not just a little, do much better financially and maybe save up some money to do something nice for their kids or whatever. Look, I get that. I really do. I still maybe I'm not in their shoes, so maybe it's a little harder for me to go along with them. While I understand the massive incentive for somebody who can make a lot more money than they were making before, I still wouldn't hire them back if they left me in the lurch because they were going to do this other thing. I just wouldn't. You got to make your own decision. I'll tell you one other thing. The idea of talking about this is benefits. I don't know exactly what the better word would be, but to talk about getting $300 a week of my children's future earnings as a benefit, I don't know. A benefit feels like something that you earned in a way, that you earned by doing a job. And nobody earned $300 a week of my children's future earnings for not working. This is well beyond whatever the unemployment system was. This was really, especially the reiteration of it, when the Democrats extended this, when not only was it unnecessary, but it was harmful. But this is the way Democrats always go about buying votes. And by the way, it's not going to work. They're not going to be able to buy votes with it because it's going to expire and people will forget about it. And then they'll be back at work by the time the next election comes around. And then people will be voting on other things like how incompetent the president of the United States is and yada, yada, yada. I don't know what a better word would be than benefits, but it strikes me as something else, like unwilling gift from other taxpayers, right? A forced charity. How about that? But the 87,000 plus who face not just a reduction, but a forced charity cliff are people who received forced charity in mid-August under 2 expiring federal, something like that. Something like that doesn't put this lovely spin of benefits. Oh, I've earned this, and it's really basically it doesn't really cost anybody anything. It's just a benefit. It's not. It's not. It's basically theft. And again, I'm gonna one other thing to reiterate something I said a moment ago. If you were to leave the doors of a bank wide open on the weekend and piles of cash sitting on the floor, unguarded, with the doors of the bank open, I'd be a little pissed, but not extremely pissed at the people who walked in and took the money. I'd be pissed at the bank manager. I'd be pissed at the people running the bank, unless they intended the money to get taken that way. But if they didn't intend the money to get stolen, then they should have guarded it better. And the fact that they gave these people incentives to go take the money is not really the fault of the people who took the money, even if people who took the money should have known better. And I think that's actually a half decent analogy for the stuff that we're talking about today. All right, coming up next, you may have heard this truly remarkable statement by a descendant of slaves in Colorado Springs. You will really enjoy it right after this.
This is Denver's Talk Station with Ross Kaminsky now. Tom Martino at 10, 630 KHOW, Denver.